Hello and welcome to the next installment of Cooking by the Book. My name is Douglas, a librarian with Baltimore County Public Library, and this is the series where I run into the collection, I grab a book, I try a recipe from it to see if we make it and if it works. Today I'm very excited. I am trying to make bread. Bread is readily available, we get it all the time, but it relatively uses very few ingredients. So we're gonna try to throw a ciabatta together using the Pan d'Avignon baking book by Ulix Femu. One tool that is particularly useful, especially if you are baking, is a kitchen scale. This is a rather simple one. It was relatively inexpensive, and I find that now that I have it, I use it all the time. Baking measurements are usually put in grams because flour is so finicky that you really want to know exactly how much of the ratio flour to water that you use. We're going to start by making a poolish. This is the thing that you need to make the day before. It's going to start fermenting some yeast. It's going to feed the yeast with some flour, and it's going to get a nice rise. So basically, I have 250 grams of water. I'm going to pour that right into my glass jar. You can use any kind of container that will hold everything. I picked a narrow glass jar, but you could use a bowl, anything that you can cover and put in the fridge. I have a generous pinch of yeast, and I'm using a rubber spatula. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to whirl this around just a little bit, just so that the yeast can dissolve into the warm water. Again, my water should be 75 to 80 degrees. Not super hot. You don't want to kill the yeast with hot water, but just nice and warm. And I'm just going to spoon, I'm going to throw my bread flour all over the table, which again is very much like me. I'm just going to be spooning my bread flour into the mixture. This is why I think putting things in a mason jar is going to be a very good idea when I start, and halfway through I realize I probably made an error in judgment. The jar will work, but I probably should have used something with a wider mouth. And I'm just going to kind of give this a stir. I want to get everything incorporated. I want to get all my flour mixed in. As you can see, the jar is only about half full right now. I'm going to cover this. I'm going to let this sit. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator, and this should, if everything works correctly, rise pretty high. I'm going to put this to bed, put myself to bed. I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see if the poolish works. So we are about to make the bread dough, the first iteration of the bread dough. As you can see, we're going to be proving and stirring later. Got a whole lot of bread, a little bit of dough. So first I'm going to do, kind of get my poolish out of the jar, and I'm going to put it right here into my rather large mixing bowl. So I've got the poolish completely out of the jar. It is now in my mixing bowl. I'm going to be adding 300 grams of warm water. The water should be 75 to 80 degrees. 500 grams of bread flour. I'm using about 13 grams of salt and a quarter teaspoon of yeast. I want to mix this with my hand. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to dip my hand in water so that my hand is wet. I'm going to be hand mixing, and a wet hand is going to be less sticky for me and allow me to move through my mixture. So let me add my ingredients. I'm going to tip in my flour. I'm going in. I'm just going to start trying to pinch and combine. It is very sticky. The poolish is sticky in itself, but what I want to do is I want to kind of move the dough around. I'm really trying to combine everything that I have here. I'm hoping that that looks pretty good. So I do have dough. So now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to prove this. So we're going to be letting this rest for 3 hours. The dough should, the yeast should activate, it should rise. We're going to give this 45 minutes, and then I'm going to do my first pinch and fold. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to leave it in a relatively warm location, not hot, but warm, and I'm going to let it sit. So our dough has been covered and the first 45 minutes have passed. And of course we've used the get figgy with it because yes, I am that kind of baker. I'm going to pull that to the side. And as we can see, my dough has relaxed a bit. It has stretched out. And so now I'm going to be doing the first of a series of about 3 turn and folds. So what I want to do, according to the cookbook, is I kind of want to grab one corner of my dough. I want to pull it up so that it's not broken, but just drop it back in. And I'm going to turn, I'm going to pull, and I'm going to drop. I'm going to fold. So I'm just kind of pulling, not letting it break, drop it and fold it. Turn, pull, drop, and fold. I think one more good one. Turn, pull, and it's not pulling apart, so that's a good sign. Drop and fold. I'll just do one more just to be on the safe. It's starting to look like proper bread dough as far as I know. So now I'm just going to cover this and we are going to continue with our folding, and then I think we'll be back when we're ready to shape. So now I'm just going to be cutting this into 2 equal size portions, just kind of pulling it apart. And this should make 2 rectangular size loaves, which, well, it looks like it has done. You know, I'm really happy so far with how my dough has turned out. I think it is soft. It definitely seems to be kind of still a little bit moist, but not too dry. And it really does kind of shape itself. So let's put this in the oven and see what happens. If we have bread after this, I'm going to be excited. I hope you're excited too. Be back in a few. And as you can see, I successfully did what I set out to do. I made 2 really nice sized ciabattas. I really think that baking bread is a tremendous opportunity. It doesn't take a lot of ingredients. You don't need a lot of special equipment. All you need is time. And the amount of time that you're doing things is limited, so you can do other things while you're baking it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I really think that you should attempt to bake a loaf on your own. The Pan d'Avignon baking book, I give 2 thumbs up. It starts with something simple like the ciabatta that we made today. This can turn into a focaccia. Then you can learn how to make a brioche, and then eventually it will lead you into the sourdough starters and very large loaves of rustic bread. I think if you work your way through that cookbook, it's definitely going to improve your skills in the kitchen as a baker. But start small, make a ciabatta, grab yourself some jam and some fresh butter, invite some friends over. I do hope that you bake a loaf of bread. Pan d'Avignon baking book, 2 thumbs up. I can't wait to hear about your baking and hope to see you all again soon.